Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back to some more bite-sized business advice. Today's episode, I promise you, is probably going to trigger you a little bit. But if you're anything like me, it's going to be in a really good way. I was chatting with my guest before we started recording, and I'm excited to dive in. We're going to talk about networking, but don't fall asleep on me yet. It's not your grandpappy's networking event that we're going to be talking about here. We're going to figure out how to actually do business at a networking event and why they're broken and why you're networking wrong. So let's unpack all of that in like 15 minutes, speed round here. Welcome to my guest, Donnie Boivin. Thanks for being here. Welcome to the show.
Brandon, dude, I'm looking forward to this. The few seconds we've talked already, it's already been fun. So this should be a blast. So let's dive in and help your people out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just said before we started recording, I was like, no, enough. Say less. Everything you say gets more and more interesting. We're going to just record and see what happens. So unpack this for me. Let's set the foundation because I think that's important. Networking events. We are not talking about your everyday networking event here. Tell me about what you do with Success Champion Networking.
Yeah, we run business to business B2B networking groups all throughout North America. If you sell B2B business to business and you're like a telecom, IT, MSP software company, and you walk into a room filled full of realtors, title, mortgage, right? There's just no value in that room for you. You can help all those people out. They just can't necessarily help you back. Because if you ask all those people, who their last 5 clients were, they're going to say they were an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer, right? They're not people that you can introduce to help you grow your business. So, in knowing that, we found the gap in the marketplace where we needed to bring all the B2B people together and do weekly virtual meetings that have a whole group of people now that are all focused on going after similar clientele, actually opening doors for each other and networking just an extremely high level of what people are used to. So that's a 50,000 foot overview.
Yeah. And, honestly, it's common sense, right? It's like I've been to those networking events and you know what you're going to find when you walk into the room.
Yep.
And that's probably why most people don't go back. It's the same crowd every single time. And it's just really hard to go to one of those events knowing that not only is it going to be the same crowd, who's in the room, you're also going to get slapped in the face with 15 business cards that you're never going to use.
12 of them are going to be financial advisors. 3 of them are going to be bankers. 6
Yep.
are going to be insurance. Yeah.
We know the stats. So my real question is, because yes, it's obvious, but no one's ever done anything about it, effectively at least. I'm curious to hear, what was that process for you when you knew what the room needed to be or should be? What was that shift? How did you make a company out of this?
So back when I sold commercial printing, my average ticket or average deal was about $50,000, right? Going in those rooms, nobody could introduce me to somebody that was going to be doing $50,000 worth of printing. I could introduce them to people all day long, right? Make a ton of introductions. So what I realized even back before I launched my company is I had to find rooms where there were people that were dealing with clientels that were my size. Now, look, you can Google right now Donnie Boivin doing live cold calls, and on YouTube, you can see and watch me do live cold calling. We hear both sides of the conversation. So I can do it. I can teach it. I'm really good at it, but I fucking hate doing it. So if I wasn't going to do traditional cold, then I had to get really fucking good at networking. And I figured out that there weren't any rooms that I could go to that were just filled with people who were selling to my ideal client, but weren't competition. So I had to create it and bring it all together because it's really fascinating that if I'm a telecom company and I sell to companies that need to have 10 plus employees, probably doing $1 million to $20 million in revenue, then I've got to find other people that already have that client base. So basically we came up with the triangle concept of where you put yourself at the top of the triangle, you put your ideal target client in the center. And the way I get people to do this is I say, let's put the first name of your favorite client in the center of that triangle. Once you get that first name, I just simply ask, what industry is that favorite client in? And let's just say it's manufacturing. Cool. Manufacturing company, 10 plus employees doing 1 to $20 million a year. The bottom of that triangle, you go, okay, cool. Who else is selling to that perfect client, right? That's not competition to you. Well, if you're telecom, you're going to be then looking at your MSP companies. You're going to be looking at your website companies, right? Maybe your marketing companies. So, what most people do from a networking standpoint is they go out and they're actually looking for clients, right? They're in rooms, they're hoping to run into somebody who can say yes to their business. The problem with that entire philosophy is I'm never going to run into your perfect clientele. Like, I'm just not going to have the conversations with a company that sells, need telecom services where they're telling me they need phones and stuff with my business. But I am going to run into a ridiculous amount of people that are actively having those conversations. So, a prime example, I had a young gal come to me that was selling websites. And she said, "Man, nobody is referring me, and my business is going almost completely out of business." And I said, "Do you know why nobody refers you?" And she said, "No." I said, "Because nobody's talking to people about websites, right? You got to be out there up front, right, to have those conversations." I said, "But there are some industries that are specifically having conversations around websites. And if you get introduced to enough of those people, they have your client base." So she spent the rest of the year telling everybody, "I do websites. I'd love to meet your marketing firm. I'd love to meet your social media firm. I'd love to meet your graphic designers. I'd love to meet your copywriters." And all those people she wasn't trying to sell anything to, she was trying to create these synergy relationships. And what we found is you take that triangle model, you put telecom at the top, MSP websites down at the bottom. Now you tell everybody, "I sell X and I'd love to meet your MSP company. I'd love to meet your, website company." And what happens is and feel free to jump in. I won't completely monopolize your show, but um, networking was built under this understanding that we have to get referrals. And a referral by definition is Bob meets Sally. Sally, I've told Bob all about your services and he's excited to talk, right? So it's an introduction with a sales call attached. You don't network for those type of referrals because most people that you're going to find out networking aren't talking to your end user client. So you have to use and leverage your network to get introduced to people who are dealing with your end user client. So you go to a networking event and instead of saying, "Hey, I need somebody who needs telecom services," you say, "I do telecom and I'd love to meet anybody you know that runs an IT company, an MSP company. I'd love to meet anybody who does website companies." Because you're not trying to sell those people. You're going to go in and try and make relationships with them so they will open doors and you guys can work on going after clients together. So this is the entire philosophy we've changed about networking, that you're not networking for for referrals, you're networking to get introduced to people that can open up doors. Because even if I do give you a referral, it's a one-time transaction, which is great, right? But I'd rather get you introduced to the person who has hundreds of your perfect clients and then try and build this lifelong relationship with them that just opens up a ridiculous amount of doors. And if people will wrap their head around this entire philosophy, it'll completely transform how they're doing business and networking. So I'll pause for a second, let you jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to jump in because everything you just said was gold, absolute gold about networking and unpacking the reality of the situation and how we need to go about it differently. So thank you for that. But it's again, it's so obvious nobody takes the time to do it. And this is what I'll say about it too, because I've noticed this recently where LinkedIn is my perfect marketplace to do case studies because in my DMs I get one of two versions, right? I get that one where people are like, "Hey, I'm looking for other whatever fractional COOs. I'm a fractional CFO. I'm looking to be introduced, whatever." Fantastic. We can build a relationship. You're really not trying to sell me anything. And then we get our other friends, the insurance and
Yep.
financial brokers, and they're like, "Hey, need an insurance product?" I'm like, "No, I didn't. I didn't ask for this. I never put out a post for this." But we still take this approach, whether it's a networking event, social media, a billboard, whatever it is. And I'm always blown away that more people haven't discovered this. I guess it's like a backdoor approach, but it's a more trustworthy approach. So help me understand this because I think people are missing a step. This is
Yeah.
at least my perception of
Now
it.
they are. So if you think about, well, how did you get how did you find the idea of networking? Because this, by you explaining that, will help the audience wrap their head around this. So how did you personally find the idea of networking?
Oh, it was probably, 10 to 15 years ago when I was first in the business world, and everyone said, "Oh, you got to come to a networking event." It was a local chamber of commerce networking event, and it was identical to the one you described in the beginning. So that's all I'll say about it. And I never wanted to go back. That was my
Cool.
first event.
So most people find networking for one of two ways. One is the way you suggest, where somebody said, "Hey, come to this event." The second one is their business is on the rocks. It's not doing well. They go to Google and go, "How do I sell better?" And eventually they'll stumble on this idea of networking. Because like my first networking event I ever went to was a group of people that got together and it felt like AA, right?
Mm.
People were like almost chanting what they did around the room. It was the weirdest thing in the world, right? Stupid jingles and all the kinds of stuff. So that's how most people don't find networking because they're the number one salesperson on the freaking planet. They're just crushing it in the business development game. So it's the alternative for people who don't want to do traditional sales. So we have to wrap our mind around it. You're not going to cold call. You're not going to kick doors in, right? So if you're not going to do that traditional style of sale, then you have to get really good at networking. So once you understand that networking is your business development tool, and if it's your only tool, it's going to suck, right? Because you're going to come across too desperate and you're always going to default back to these elementary principles of sell everybody you meet. So if you understand this is your business development tool, you have to then really start looking at the rooms you're going into and the people you're interacting. Like you can go into that room filled full of realtors, title, mortgage, and the like. As long as you don't go into that room thinking you're going to sell anything, and everybody's like, I don't network to sell. Bullshit. You need the money. That's why you're out networking, right? Let's just be real. So if you go into that room and you start thinking about who can this person introduce me to? Well, none of their clientele are going to be people that need your services. They're just not having those conversations, but they are out doing a lot of networking. So now it's understanding, can they get me to these people that I can build these synergistic relationships with? Can I leverage who they've networked with? Because if you're a realtor, financial advisor, you're networking your ass off, right? Because you have to. It's a way you grow those styles of businesses. And you're going to run across all these people. So if I can leverage your network to get to the people I need, now I can bump it up a scale. So what most people don't think about is that who else sells to my ideal client? They're constantly focused on who's my ideal client. And so they get, laser focused in how do I get to that manufacturing company? Instead of how can I build an army and my word of mouth sales team by getting all the people that have my client base or selling to my client base and building these cool relationships with them. So imagine like if HR consultants were like, so my brother, he runs a background screening and drug testing company. By far, HR consultants are his number one referral source, right? Because they're already having the conversations. The minute he started telling people, hey, I do drug testing and I'd love to meet anybody in the HR space, everything changed for him because now it's really easy to go, oh, well, I know Sally, she does HR. I know Bob, he does HR. And you can start making the introductions and things start moving. The way to really get that ball moving is you sit across from somebody and go, okay, Brandon, right? Tell me who your best freaking, client is, right? And whoever that is, whatever industry they're in, then well, let's do it live. Let's be fun. So first name of your favorite client.
Sandy,
Sandy, what industry is Sandy in?
she is a virtual telehealth, we'll say,
Be-
provider.
Perfect. Love that. By the way, how hard was that to give up that information?
Oh, it's easy. You know who
Right?
they are. They're
Right.
baked in. These are the people you're thinking about all the time.
Right. And there's no threat because you didn't give me too much information, right? It's first name industry. Cool. Who else sells into telehealth? Like, what size company is she? Is she a solopreneur? Is she a few employees? What size company is she?
No, multi-million. She's got 40, we'll say between 40 and 60 employees. And what was the other question? Oh, the companies it's selling. So software providers are huge. So it's mostly labor, it's telehealth. So it's other software platforms. We come in as the fractional COO. So yeah, it would be other software
Awesome.
companies.
Cool. So if it's software companies, so would you be okay if I legitimately, and we can go make sure we connect on LinkedIn and I introduce you to 2 or 3 software companies?
Absolutely.
Right? So that's the first move in this is you got to understand who specifically they need to be connected to. Then you literally go make those introductions because it's an introduction. It's not a referral. I'm not saying this is who you should do business with. I'm saying you two go figure it out, right? You two go create this killer synergy. So I introduce you to 3 to 5 software companies. And then I would say, hey, Brandon, do you by chance know any other podcasters? And that's a real question. Do you know any other podcasters?
Absolutely.
Do you know any that do a business podcast?
Of course I do.
Would you be comfortable introduce me to those people that do business podcasts?
100%.
Right. And then once you make that introduction, I'm going to go, hey, I know it's software company, but I bet if you were to look at maybe telecom, maybe the MSP companies, they're trying to get in there as well, or they already have those type. Are you okay if I introduce you to a couple of maybe telecom, maybe MSP companies as well?
Yeah, definitely.
Right. Now, in just a few seconds, and that didn't take, I mean, a virtual coffee can take this fast. You can sit across from somebody and instantly both people can make 4 or 5 introductions that are high value, high quality, that freaking make a conversation move forward. This is how networking was meant to be done. Right. And it's the
Yeah.
same thing in person. You go to an in-person event, everybody's hung up on, ooh, what is my pitch? How do I say shit right? Nobody gives a flying fuck. Right. The first question, first interaction you have at a networking event doesn't really matter. If they're networking, you're gonna see them again because they're networking. They're out and about. So your job is to keep the spotlight off you and make it about their world. So you say, hey, cool. How'd you get into what you do? Who do you need to meet? And if they go to the end user clientele, say, cool, who else sells to those type of companies? And then you start making introductions for them right then and there. It changes the dynamic of everything. But it's a philosophical shift because people are coming at it from a broke mindset of I network to close deals.
Yeah, it's super awkward because we just went through what I do after every single podcast recording. So I don't know what we're going to talk about after we stop recording because I was going to offer to introduce you to people, and so I guess I guess we should just leave the call. No, but I love this because that in that context where you're just going in with what is my pitch and how do I sell people, nobody even wants to further that conversation. But the reason that I've adopted this strategy, even like I just said, because you put me on my back foot immediately when you said, who's your best client, who can I introduce you to. I was All I'm thinking is I have to return this favor. Like I
Yes.
need to introduce Donnie to somebody I know that can help him, and not my back foot in a bad way, but
Right.
I wanted to be proactively like out there championing you because you're offering to help me. You've just completely shifted the dynamic in networking, which I'm pretty positive is your whole point here.
100%. I realized about 2 years ago that I was networking different than other people. I really truthfully never wanted to open networking groups. I just thought it was networking. It's not rocket science. And once people understand the way that I talk about networking, it's not rocket science. They just haven't thought about it from this perspective, right? Once you hear it, you can understand it. So that's I am on the path right now to help as many people as possible shift how they're actually networking so it actually works for them, not this. And let's be honest, man, everybody who came up in networking, everybody we grew up teaching networking, they came from a transactional world. They came from car sales, insurance, and I'm not bagging on those industries, but it's a one and done. Everybody you talk to is a prospect, style of networking. When you sell B2B, nobody's a prospect. Right. And they can say that in traditional networking, and it's a lie because if you are a realtor, you can sell everybody in that room. If you're a chiropractor, you can sell everybody in that room. When you sell B2B, there's hardly anybody in that room you can sell. So you've got to change the exact entire methodology behind how you network.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Donnie, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and unpacking this for us. it's a totally new approach to networking. I think more people need to hear about. I love that you're doing this. So I put your website on the screen here. It's also, we have all your links down in the show notes below. This one in particular, I don't think we even talked about this, but your company, Success Champion Networking, you have chapters of networking groups where you can go on this website, find a chapter you want to be a part of, and get in a room that's going to up level your business. So
100%.
anything we need to know about Success Champion Networking?
Well, I'll tell you guys, if you made it this far with us, do Brandon a favor and take a screenshot wherever you're listening or watching this and share this out. Tag me in it, tag Brandon in it. If I see the tag, dude, I promise you I'll come engage on it. But by you sharing out this episode for Brandon, lets him know this is the type of guest, type of conversations you want on. And if it's not this episode, any episode of his that you screenshot and share out there and tag will mean the world to him. But Success Champions Networking, we just changed how the world networks. I wanted to get to a place where we're bringing real business together. You're getting into real business conversations. You don't need all the fluff. We're legitimately, you come to a group and doors get opened because we all understand the power of building a monstrous network of people that are all going after your same clientele. And we just do shit differently. It's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. This dude's a rock star. I can tell. I just know it. I'm excited to dive in deeper here. Now, Donnie, before I let you go, I got to ask you one more question. It's a question for a question. For me, this is the most important part of the episode. You've unpacked this for 20 minutes for us, but it's easy to forget things as human beings, especially as business owners. We're busy. So I need that one question that the listener can take for the rest of the day, the rest of the week, and they can think about in terms of this conversation. How can we up level our networking? How can we get in better rooms? What is that one question you want people to ask themselves on repeat until they find the answer?
So it's a two-part question. Question number one is, who sells to my ideal clientele that's not competition? The second half, where do they hang out? You answer those two questions and you will dynamically transform the growth of your business, right? Because you figure out who those industries are. And look, most people do things like, and I'm going to go another soapbox, but most people go to associations and shit, and they're hanging out with a bunch of people that sell the same thing they sell. I'm like, why go to those rooms? I'm sure there's some industry knowledge and everything else, but wouldn't you rather be in an association where it's filled with people that sell to your ideal clientele but are not competition? Like, once upon a time, I joined the Greater Fort Worth Builders Association. I was selling sales training. I walked up to all the home builders and said, look, I don't want to sell you sales training. I don't even want to try and train you guys. If you're a home builder, your entire sales process is one person sitting in a house, somebody walks in, you go, you want to buy a house. There's nothing I can teach there. I don't want to do that. I said, but I will take you to lunch. I will buy you drinks. Let's go play golf. And I spent 6 months getting to know these home builders. Why? Because right around the 6-month mark, the rest of the members of that association, which there were 600 vendors trying to sell these home builders, and they had droves and droves and droves of sales team. Largest deal I ever closed in my life was 4,000 salespeople from across North America. And it's because I introduced the #1 custom home builder to the #1 lumber company in the world, and they made a massive deal, and it earned me a second conversation. Right. So you got to go get in places where people are going after your perfect client, and not rooms where it's filled with a bunch of people that do what you do.
This is absolutely amazing advice. And I hope a million people hear it, because more and more people need to hear this conversation, because we are doing networking wrong. And Donnie, I can't thank you enough for unpacking this with us today. Thanks for being a phenomenal guest.
My honor, brother. Thanks for having me on.
Wherever you're watching or listening, do what Donnie said. Make sure you send a screenshot, tag both of us. We will definitely interact back with you. And maybe we can make some introductions for you to help you grow your business. That's the whole reason we put on this show. Give you those little bite-sized nuggets to help you get outside the box of what you're doing and get your business to the next level. So subscribe, keep joining us. We'll see you on the next episode of Harmonious.